Hello, everyone. This is Nora Armani, founding artistic director of the Socially Relevant Film Festival, New York. And we are here on our third. Is this our third, fourth? I lost count. Let me check and tell you the correct number. Yes, it's the third of the series. We have 10 coming up your way. Third of the Meet the Filmmakers series, which are broadcast live on our YouTube channel and simultaneously on the festival Facebook page, as well as my own, so that my own friends can also have a chance to join in. The way this works is that I have the 4 filmmakers or 3 filmmakers, whoever is able to join, in the virtual studio with me. We take a quick round, they introduce themselves and their film, and then we start discussing each of the films. The Socially Relevant Film Festival is now 12 years old. It has come a long way, and we have screened 750 films from 40 countries since its beginning. And if we count the films that we have this year, we will be very close to 800. I am very happy about the way this has turned out. Of course, it hasn't been an easy climb. The first year, it was very, very difficult with no funding. Everybody loved the idea of putting together a program that deals with all sorts of social issues and shines the spotlight on filmmakers that are spending their last penny to make films that talk about real people and social issues instead of reverting to violence, explosions, special effects that don't particularly improve on our lives. And the festival has come a long way thanks to the support of a lot of talented filmmakers, because if we don't have filmmakers, we don't have films, we don't have film festivals. I got news for you. Then also, very important, our sponsors and partners need to be thanked. They are all spotlighted on our website and will be in the festival trailer very soon. We also wish to thank the festival team. Without a team, this is not one person's work. Without a team supporting the effort and bringing in the day-to-day work that it takes to put together a festival, this cannot happen. The jury members who spend hours of their precious time watching the selected films to designate the winners, and everyone else who, one way or another, contributes to the success of such a venture. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And I will bring on the filmmakers now so that they can introduce themselves, their films, and tell you something about what makes them tick. Okay, so maybe we'll start with Aaron because he was here before and we couldn't talk to him. So let's hear him out.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Aaron Goffman. I'm the writer and director of a short film called Darcine's Day. And Darcine's Day is about a woman in contemporary or current day Los Angeles, navigating the job market and the housing market, and realizing the real effects of our post epidemic economy and the reality of living in a big city. The realities of living in our big cities in 2025.
That's cool. That's very interesting film, and we'll talk more about it as we progress. Okay, it's either Naomi or Bernhard, whoever wants to go first.
You can go first.
Okay, sure. Hi. Good morning here from San Francisco. My name's Naomi Garcia Pasmanick, and I am the director, producer, editor of a short 30-minute documentary called Olas de Recuerdo in Spanish and Memories of Salt in English. And Memories of Salt is a documentary in which I interview a lot of the elders in my family in a rural fisherman town in Galicia in northern Spain. And it's really about me kind of getting to the root of their story and what they experienced during the Spanish Civil War as active union members and kind of, people who are poor who were participating in the labor struggle of their time and then had to face pretty harsh repression from the military dictatorship that ensued after that. And through that film, I kind of just make a lot of parallels with our time today. So
Yeah, that is quite a nice film. I'm going to tell more about when each one is screening and tell people where to find these and so on once we get through all the intros. Okay, Bernhard.
Hi, so I'm Bernhard. My film is called Untold Concerts, and I'm the director, the camera person, and the editor of this movie. It's a short documentary, and it explores New York City's vibrant music scene. And it showcases the musicians and a lot of music lovers through a montage of intimate stories, live performances, and also showing the city's dynamic and land and soundscapes.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. I'm going to let the website of the festival scroll while I tell about this so that listeners who are there can find out more information and maybe see the trailers of these wonderful films. What we noticed here, a common thread between these three filmmakers, is that they wrote, directed, produced, and did everything about their film. If they could, they would even act in it, but be behind the camera at the same time. And, this is what we are all about. The socially relevant film festival selection process does not go around in the big festivals and try and find all the big films that are already making a huge splash, already having wonderful write-ups about them with stars in them and so on, and bring them to us. Because we feel that those films are already getting a part of the spotlight. They are already in the spotlight. What we advocate is filmmakers who are spending their last pennies and making these wonderful films. That by offering them, we feel a platform, we are helping at least the film get one step closer to an audience. And we are very grateful to our industry partners, such as IndiePix, such as Cinema Libre, who has been next to us from the very beginning, who have helped us and who pick titles from our selection for their collections. And that's when a film gets distribution and has a life beyond the festival. So let me also take this moment and tell our listeners that we have we have early bird tickets, and these films can be still enjoyed. The early bird single $5 tickets are sold out, unfortunately, but you have even a better deal if you purchase the trio, because the trio gives you 3 tickets for $12, which means $4 per ticket. You can't even get a latte. You can't even get a drip coffee for $4 nowadays. So come to the cinema. Don't drink coffee. It's bad for you. Instead, spend those $4, 3 times $4, and come and see 3 wonderful films. We even have a $75 Trio Elite, and more are on sale on the website. When you go, you will discover for yourselves. So let me just go back to my filmmakers and ask them how they got the idea of the films that they are showcasing with us. And maybe they want to talk about some of the challenges they met during the process. It's your mic. So whoever wants to jump in.
Well, I'm already unmuted, so I can jump in. So for Olas de Recuerdo, or Memories of Salt, it was a very kind of like personal, historical a theme that I had been wanting to explore. I grew up very closely to my grandmother, who was very sweet and kind and everything, but she didn't really like to talk about her past. And I knew that she had been through war and that, you know, it was a really bad time. And that's part of why she didn't want to talk about it. But I had also heard stories of like heroism and these big tales about her mother, my great grandmother, and how she was very rebellious and had been punished, but like, you know, that didn't stop her. So I was always very intrigued by those stories. And I decided that, you know, I had the blessing that a lot of the elders in my family have lived very long lives into their 90s, and they were still there. And I had the opportunity to, once I kind of started learning how to make films, I thought, you know, I should really interview the elders and really do my research and get these stories and document them and save them. So it was kind of my first big documentary project, even though it was a very small crew of just me and one other person. And yeah, that's kind of how I decided to make this film. It was also a long process. It took about 5 years from the beginning, from, you know, the research and actual filming stage until the editing process, till it was done. So it's been a big process of like self-reflection and knowledge growing.
Yeah, that's another thing that I have discovered talking to the filmmakers over the years, and that each and every one of these films, even whether they are short films or feature films, they take time. You know, sometimes you think, wow, that's an incredible topic. I'll film that, and maybe in a few weeks' time, the film will be ready to send to film festivals. And then you start. And once you delve in, you realize, oh my God, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And there is so much to this that I cannot leave out. So I'd better do it the right way. Mm-hmm. So, and maybe you can make it a feature documentary eventually.
Yeah.
Who knows? So, Memories of Salt is one of the films we have selected for our opening night, which is on March 11. Oh, sorry. I had something happened with my computer. And unfortunately, the early bird tickets do not apply to opening and closing nights, but we also have a second screening for that. For the 3 films that are screening on opening night, we have been able to schedule additional screenings so that people who have purchased the early bird tickets or single regular tickets can attend. The opening night is by invitation, and we have a very limited number of VIP tickets. So we don't want to deprive people from seeing these wonderful films. And Memories of Salt, because it's a woman film and about women and women's memories, it's screening at the Cinema Village, 1:30 screening slot on Friday, the 14th of March, in a block of shorts called Art and Empowering Women. So there you go. You got all the work. But if you didn't retain what I just said, all you have to do is go on the website and click the schedule, and you will find everything you need. So, Aaron or Bernhard, whoever wants to tell us.
Sure, I'll go next, if that's all right with you, Bernhard. Darcine's Day started as an effort to create an interesting character. Simply, the only objective was to create an interesting character in a character study. And the idea of housing in Los Angeles and the issue of homelessness in Los Angeles came up, and we started to develop, and I started to develop a character that was experiencing homelessness. And as that concept evolved, and as I interviewed people, I realized that the concept, that issue, is vast, and there are quite a few facets to housing and homelessness. And I was very naive to that. So it was an education for me to learn and explore. And what I discovered was that I had some preconceived notions. In fact, I would say that I was prejudiced or I was bigoted. And I had my own shortcomings as far as how I viewed my neighbors experiencing homelessness. And so I decided to look more closely at that and my own sort of biases. And I discovered stories about my neighbors who were struggling, but through no fault of their own. And it started to reveal itself to me were that many people in our big cities, and this is a Los Angeles story, but I think it applies to any big city in the United States or perhaps in the world, is that people, because of our economy and because of politics, because of the way our society is shifting with real estate prices and renter prices, price of food, scarcity of good paying jobs, etc. Everybody at every level is getting pushed down. No matter where we are on the economic scale, we're all getting pushed down. And what I discovered was that some people, and maybe a lot of people, were experiencing housing challenges, not through any fault of their own. So it was a time for me to look at my own biases and prejudices and explore kind of like why I have these feelings and maybe preconceived notions about my neighbors who are experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
My film is a drama. It's not a documentary.
It's a scripted drama. It's a scripted film. It's not a documentary, unlike Memories of Salt or Untold Concerts, but it highlights a very, very important issue, because you made a very important point by saying that everybody on the economic ladder is being pushed down. And guess who is pushing that button down?
Well, I think there's like almost kind of an imperfect, or I guess we call it a perfect storm, but it's an imperfect perfect storm of, combination of all sorts of factors, political, economic, social. Of course, being just past, it's sort of old news to talk about the pandemic anymore, but still, like 9/11, the pandemic changed our world. And we're in a new world post-pandemic, even though we don't think about the pandemic anymore. Our world has changed. And so, I see videos and interviews with people on Instagram and other places. They're crying because they can't afford their rent. They can't, the rent's going up from $1,300 to $1,800. And that might be cheap for someone in New York, but still, or more. And, now they can't afford to buy food or snacks, or they can't afford to buy cat food anymore. And they certainly can't afford to go out. So they just stay in their apartment all day long because they have no money to do anything.
Yeah.
I look at younger people and younger couples starting out perhaps in their 20s, and I'm wondering, how will they ever buy a house, start a family? How will they ever get out on their own? They're surviving perhaps, and perhaps getting ahead in ways, but really and truly, will a young couple ever be able to, buy a house and raise 2 kids? It's sort of like the American dream.
Yeah.
So,
it is becoming very impossible. And here in New York, prices have tripled. I'm not saying double, tripled since COVID. Okay, at the beginning, there were help for some of the businesses because they went out of business, they closed, the restaurant couldn't, and so on and so forth. But now that everything is supposedly back, everything has tripled and doubled, so that people start going out less. people start when, let's say you go out, instead of having 2 drinks, you have 1 drink. And then eventually you have no drinks, you have just water, and so on and so forth. So it's affecting everybody's lifestyle. And homelessness is very important, because you pointed to a very important element of homelessness, that it could be the girl next door, it could be your neighbor, it could be you. It doesn't have to be the unshaven guy who's mentally distorted and he's been out on the streets all his life and has problems with his drug issues and so on. No, it could be normal, regular, functioning people who end up homeless. And that is what your film is pointing us, the reality of that. So let's hear from Bernhard and see what he has to say about his Untold concerts.
Yeah. So I came up with this idea pretty naturally, because I love music by myself and I also learned the piano. So this is also a part of my studies at the New School, the documentary media studies program. So when I need to come up with an idea, first of all, I was thinking what you will do when you will live in New York for years, or will want to see the great jazz shows. And then I was thinking, what about the persons who are behind these music instruments? What's their story? Because you only see them on the stage. And it was really, I think really important for me to give them like this stage, and also highlight where they're living and how they are struggling. So many of them started with having side jobs, and also there's part of gentrification. It's a big issue. They cannot afford the rent anymore. So I wanted to show why they're still staying in this so expensive city. So the struggle and triumph in New York is coming, side by side, I would say. And at the end, the important thing is to really show the unifying power of music, which keeps all together. Some challenges there was definitely a challenge to get really close to the people. I mean, to meet the people, it was pretty easy because everybody is so open and really friendly and wonderful. But when you come as a foreigner and really want to deep dive into their social lives, they will not tell you this in the first meeting or in the second, because they want to represent themselves, because they love to be in front of the camera, want to tell you why they love music, why they're playing their instruments. So to really deep dive into their struggles, you need time. And then at the end, to create a story in the editing room, this was the next challenge, I would say. So going out with the camera and capturing great moments is easy, but to really have this social relevant topic and this guidance, to find this guidance was quite difficult. It's also really interesting for me that many people in New York, they forget that they're living next to the water. So there is this subtly reminding from the water reflections, and they're resembling these waveforms kind of. And water is also a restless surrounding force, like the musicians themselves. This was also an important part.
That's a very, very interesting allegory, because you see, as somebody watching us from outside, you have been able to find that element and bring it to the surface, so to say.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody who's in it all the time may not have noticed that. So there is a strength to being the foreigner coming in and filming something. Although it's true that with documentaries, you always have the resistance at first, or the wish to portray themselves in one particular way or another. After all, they are performers. and this is about music. But through that, you have been able to break through that mask and get into the depth of it and talk about the lives of the people and how it is affected by what they do. That's why there is a very strong element to this film. In many ways, it's not just putting together these musicians in New York, but also showing us an aspect that a New Yorker could have easily missed. So each and every one of these films is a piece of jewel by itself. And I always give this example. For me, it's Sophie's choice. Which child do you give up, And when we have all the submissions that come to us and we are selecting, the difficult question we ask ourselves is not which films are we going to show, is which films are we going to have to eliminate, because we don't have the means, and we are not a month-long film festival to be able to screen every single good film that comes our way or socially relevant. Of course, the quality of the film is very, very important. Production values, quality. If it's a scripted film, the acting definitely has to be tip-top and all that. But after all those concerns, we still end up with a whole lot that we cannot show each and every one. So I keep repeating this because a lot of times I get a filmmaker come back and say, my film is so socially relevant. I thought it was exactly up your alley. It's made for your film festival. How come you ended up not selecting it? And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's not because it's bad, but because we have limited screens and there is so much we can do. Now that we are developing our online section a little bit more, maybe in the future we can have a permanent roster of socially relevant films, and then people can have an outlet besides the in-person screenings at the festival. Which brings me to the next question. Let me just scroll this so people can go on the website if they wish. We also have our YouTube channel. This is going live on the YouTube channel. And on the YouTube channel, we have all the trailers of all the films we are screening, and they are arranged into playlists. We have a playlist for the documentaries, the narrative shorts, documentary shorts, and you'll find everything there. And even this talk, after we are done, it's going to be available on our YouTube channel for whoever wants to go back and listen to it. And in fact, for everybody, when you're speaking, I try to make you the solo version. I mean, not all four, even though that's interesting too, so that you are able to take sections and use it for your own reels or for your own purposes. So let's just go quickly around and see why you came to the Socially Relevant Film Festival. How did you find out about us? And what are your expectations from screening at the Socially Relevant Film Festival? No particular turn, whoever wants to go.
Well, I'll go. So I think Memories of Salt is very, it is, I was appreciated. I saw Socially Relevant Film Festival and I thought, I think that this could be a good fit, because in my documentary, I do kind of delve and explore certain difficult topics, including repression, fascism, the rise of a military fascist power, and the role of our own government in those types of movements and involvement in other militaristic calamities, including what has been happening in Gaza. So I have also experienced that these are topics that not every institution wants to engage with for whatever, different reasons. And I don't expect all festivals, to be ready or wanting to kind of highlight some of the historical parallels that I explore through this work, and kind of call out, even within my own mixed identity of being Jewish and Spanish, and kind of having these histories go through me as like a modern person in San Francisco, right? So I was really happy that the Socially Relevant Film Festival selected my film and is kind of providing this platform for me to share my personal story, as well as provide a platform to spark discussion about some of the topics that I bring up that most mainstream media might not want to really talk about. Oh, you're muted, Nora.
There is so much that mainstream media doesn't want to talk about. So the more we have of these platforms, the more we can counterbalance that. So Aaron, or
yeah. As I mentioned, I started out writing a script for the main purpose of creating an interesting character. And through the process, I've actually discovered a name for my genre, which I'm calling social realism, or which is called social realism. But before this film, I didn't know my genre. I knew I loved films, and I loved all films, but I never really knew my strength or my area of focus. And through this film, I've discovered, and now I call it social realism. But as I mentioned, I'm not a documentarian, and I know nothing about documentary filmmaking, but drama, scripted drama is my realm, and social drama is what I'm focusing on. And my objective was to make a good, entertaining film with a good, entertaining story with good characters. And what I did was, once the film was finished, I hired a film festival strategist, since I'm so new to the process. And her name is Rebecca Smith. Her company is called the Film Festival Doctor. And she has a fee for her services. But what she does is she helps filmmakers, large and small, strategize, and she curates a list of festivals based on the content and the subject matter and where it would be likely to be accepted and appreciated. And Rebecca recommended the Socially Relevant Film Festival to me as a place where we should apply or submit. I had never heard of your festival. I would have probably never known about it and had any exposure whatsoever. But because of this specialty called Film Festival Strategist, and this wonderfully talented person named Rebecca Smith, she introduced me to your festival and others around the country and world who I never would have heard of, but who really appreciate our film and the story of our film. So that's the story of how I got to socially relevant, and I feel very honored to be considered relevant. It's a great title. You're still muted, Nora. Nora, you're muted.
The drill doesn't start suddenly. Anyway, what I'm saying is that is a discovery for me as well, because I had no idea there is such a job as a festival strategist. Wow.
There's a few of them out there. Rebecca, I think, is one of the best, but there's a few out there, and it's just another thing to discover, and another way to spend money, but still another great service that really for me was very helpful.
I can see the point, because it could be another way to spend money, but at the same time, I see a lot of filmmakers who, without any with no discrimination, they just apply left, right, and center. That would be more wasted money.
That's her point, basically. She said, don't submit to the giant, huge, famous festivals, although I did anyway, because I thought, well, maybe they'll discover me. But she said, don't submit to, Tribeca or Toronto or Sundance. You're wasting your money, but there's small festivals like your festival and others around the country and world who are going to really appreciate the message.
Yeah.
And it will be a smaller audience, but it will connect with people who are really into it.
Yeah.
And that has been very gratifying.
That's a very smart decision, because the big festivals have their own agenda. I mean, I would love to be part of a big festival. Don't get me wrong. Anybody would. But it's very, very difficult, especially if you're starting out. You haven't made a name for yourself. And that's what I was saying earlier. We don't go around the big festivals finding the movies that are already making a splash or have big names in them and bring them over. But we go and do our research, watch every film, every submission, and see how we can make the difference in this film's life or in this filmmaker's life. And I pride ourselves saying that we are a boutique film festival. Sometimes people don't like the fact that I send out a lot of emails. I want everybody to be engaged. I want everybody to feel part of this big family, because that's what it's all about. If we don't help each other, if this doesn't become a family of which you can feel a part of, and it is just one other film festival to which you are applying, then you're missing out on a lot. We're organizing a lot of networking events, a lot of happy hours. We have done a lot of industry workshops in the past. We put people together. We have our industry partners who pick films and give it distribution. So all this is very, very important, that in the shuffle of a big festival can easily be lost. And with us, it's highlighted. With us, it's much more available to all the filmmakers that we select. My only wish is we could select more, but maybe that will come one day. So, Bernhard.
Yeah. Thanks for being part of this family. So I was searching particularly for New York film festivals because, my film is a New York film. And I think it's pretty relevant because music and art is defining New York, or I think many cities, but New York especially. And a lot of New Yorkers forget about it. They take it for granted that there are musicians everywhere, but they shouldn't, because with the rising prices, artists will eventually leave the city. So I think this is the perfect stage for this film, to give a platform for the musicians to share the stories in New York. Yeah.
Are the musicians going to be present? Do you think some of them might come to the screening?
I hope so. I invited everyone. At least one should come, yeah.
Yeah, because I've written an email that I will be sending out later today to the filmmakers, but since you're here, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You are free to invite whoever you like for the Q&A section, especially if it's a subject of your film or a protagonist or a collaborator or a producer. Or when we say Q&As with the filmmakers, it doesn't mean that it has to be only the filmmaker. So especially the audience likes to see somebody just seen on the screen in real life. So this creates a lot of interest. We have always been able to allow the extra 10-15 minutes after each screening, especially when the response to our initial query has been that, yes, I will be able to attend, because we send out a pre-selection form asking the filmmakers if they're coming, asking all sorts of questions that, well, sometimes people might be bothered and say, okay, I mean, enough, leave me alone. Well, if you want to be left alone, go to a film festival where you won't be even noticed. That's my advice. This festival takes care of its filmmakers. And one way of taking care is to keep you in the loop, to keep you informed, and to create this family that people will, and please, 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 if somebody's listening out there, and all three of you here, don't discard any of the emails we send you, because each and every one has important messages. I have tons of things to do, and I could use more time of not having to write these emails if I could, but it's one way of communicating and letting you know what the left hand is doing, letting the right hand know what the left hand is doing. And because we're all in this together, the festival success has as much responsibility put on the festival organizers as it has on the filmmakers that are part of it. So, last round is about what is your next project, if you want to talk about it, of course. If you don't, you can talk about the weather or anything else.
I will go first. I wasn't planning on developing this story for Darcine's Day any further than the short film. However, at small film festivals, I've had meaningful connections with audience members who have, asked very poignant questions and frankly requested more of the story. And people constantly ask me, what happens next for Darcine? What's going to happen to Darcine? They fall in love with the character. So I realized we do have something here. And so after thinking maybe I should put my efforts into making another short film, or perhaps make 4 more short films, I decided, you know what, this is so expensive, it takes so much time, I'm going to put all of my effort and time into making a feature film that I can actually distribute and perhaps sell. So that's my effort now. I'm developing Darcine's Day into a feature-length script. I'm expanding the story much more broad, with much more, much more time, many more characters. But I'm continuing to tell the story of what happens to people in Los Angeles and the reality of living in current day Los Angeles. So it's sort of like Aaron Brockovich on the streets of LA.
Wow, that's a nice way of putting it. Aaron Brockovich in the streets of LA.
And I feel
we don't want to know the ending because we still want to come and see it. But it could have a very unexpected ending and
Yes.
turn of events.
Yes.
Yeah.
And with the fires and everything now, I think that adds its own twist. I mean, I don't know if you would include that, but
that's interesting. That's interesting because that's very timely. But the thing about Los Angeles and maybe all of our big cities is, we get over the fires. In a year from now, it will be less newsworthy. But this constant the movement of the economy and the evolution of life in the big cities is kind of ongoing. So there is a fear about making a movie and having it big obsolete by the time it comes out in 1, 2, or 3 years. Perhaps that could be part of a story. But however, I don't think the good thing about these kinds of stories is I think they kind of become timeless and they don't depend on any particular, event. So, but I also finding that Los Angeles kind of stands in for every big city, at least in the United States. I don't know how it compares to big cities in Europe, but Toronto has the same issues, and Vancouver has the same issues, and I know San Francisco, Chicago, New York, all are experiencing the same. Portland, same issues as Los Angeles with regards to economy and the cost of housing, etc. So we do feel like we've hit on some universal topic here.
Yeah, it certainly is a universal topic. When I'm thinking, what would it be in New York, the situation? For example, she ends up living in her car. Did I give away the ending? Oh my God. Spoiler alert.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
but we won't say how, so they have to come and find out. Okay. But in New York, we don't even have a car.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where do I end up?
Interesting.
In the subway.
Yeah.
Or the street on a cardboard.
Yeah.
So it's harsh. Yes. Anyone else wants to talk about their next move?
I can follow on. Yeah. So my next idea, or I'm working on, it's about special district here in Vienna. It's on the outskirts where a lot of immigrants are living in. And with this project, I want to take away a little bit the fear from the unknown and follow some social workers in cultural and social places. And the funding situation is a little bit different here in Europe than in the US. So I applied a few weeks ago for government funding for developing a story. So it's not private funded. And I also have a lot of partners already, a lot of art places who want to collaborate, and also many really interesting people who are giving their full power and all their free time, many of them without even getting paid, to help people with less income. And
See, that's really interesting, because once you get your first film out there, maybe it's not your first, I'm not insinuating that it's your first, but a film out there, then it gives you more courage, and it also becomes a magnet. It attracts more people. The same thing happened with our film festival. When we first started the first year with no funding, everybody was saying, wow, that's a great idea. I love the idea, but nobody was writing a check. So I decided that, okay, either I do this or I spend the rest of my life talking about it and regretting that I didn't do it. So I jumped at it, sweating bullets every night. And in the end, when the first year was done, people came to us and they said, we were there at your opening. It was such an amazing event. We want to be part of it. How can we help? Do you need this? Do you need that? And sponsors started coming. Small amounts, little here, little there, but it all adds up. And more importantly, it's not the amounts. We don't have huge funders like annual allowances and big funds that take care of the whole expense sheet or anything like that. Maybe one day, who knows? But I appreciate so much every single contribution, every single grant we get, regardless of how small or how big it is, because it means that people believe in what we are doing. And that, for me, means so much more than the actual dollar amount. Of course, the dollar amount would be great, and we want to go after that. But the support gives us what is needed at this stage to keep going, to go forward. So, who hasn't said what they want to do next?
Yeah, I can share. So the next project I'm working on, I've actually been also kind of working on it for a while. It's a documentary about some friends of mine who are artists they're in their 60s, and they have this really interesting art trade called Chispa, where they they have this whole cart that they built, and they go into community areas like libraries and events, and they ask the community to make art, and then in exchange they give them a print made by a local artist. And it's this really beautiful project, and the film has kind of been changing from just documenting this particular initiative into what it means to be kind of aging and feeling like done and like complete with a project, and the process of moving on from something and kind of like shifting gears. And so it's very tender, and it's very, I think, again, relevant to so many of us, maybe all of us as artists and as people who not only have to like wrap up a project and move on, but also, you know, the limitations of getting older and the physical realities of that and all of that. So we're working on that. We're kind of there. The protagonists are like the last interview, of course, the most important one that we still need to film and then, you know, edit. But we're definitely going to want to submit to festivals as well and kind of just share this very tender and like hyper local San Francisco story.
Yeah, it sounds like a very interesting project. And I must repeat that all three of your films are screening at the Cinema Village 1:30 slot on Friday, March 14. And the title of that is Art and Empowering Women. Not all of, two of the stories here are about empowering women. Untold Concert is not necessarily about women, even though you might have women become empowered by listening or seeing the film, but it's art and how it affects our lives. And so that's the program that you all three will find each other in. I'm not sure, Naomi, you are attending, aren't you?
Yes, I'm very excited coming to New York for the opening night and for staying all the way till Saturday. So yeah.
Yeah, so this is cool because you now met virtually on a screen, and a couple of weeks from now, you're going to be there in person. And on opening night, a moment which I really, really like, if all the filmmakers are able to make it to opening night, that we all come together under the logo of the festival and we take a big group photo commemorating that moment. And I always jokingly say, this is the one where all the filmmakers will be smiling in, because nobody knows who won, who didn't yet. But the one we take on closing night is like, maybe some of them won't be so happy. But just being here means a lot to us. So just know that your films are wonderful. You have to keep doing what you do because the world needs more of this type of film. So we have a few more minutes left. If anybody wants to comment or say something or announce or whatever you want, a few more minutes.
I'll just say thank you, Nora, for arranging this festival, and also to your crew and your staff, your judges, and your volunteers. I know it takes a lot of work to put on a festival. I know that's not a high profit, endeavor. But so I know there's a lot of passion, and sort of like producing a film, there's a lot of passion and it doesn't make any sense at all, but we just do it because we're driven to it. So I appreciate your work and your dedication, and I'm sure you're taking care of a lot of people and making a lot of people happy and doing something very good for the community. So that's very commendable, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And I really appreciate that you're appreciating the team behind this, because as I said earlier, this is a colossal work and it's not a one-woman show. I do one-woman shows on stage, but that's completely different. I just get up and do my thing. Whereas here, I cannot pull that through. I cannot pull this magic through a hat without the help of a team. Anyone else? I'm not asking for praise, but whatever you want to talk about, not necessarily me or the festival.
I also want to say really thank you very much, and looking forward meeting you all guys.
Yeah, me too. Now that all the work is done, like a few weeks, once we have the selection, it's speed. We have to get the films. We have to make sure the filmmakers are still okay. They are accepting the pre-selection. They are doing this. They are bringing the films. They are uploading. By the way, if your films are not yet uploaded, please do it quickly, because the Spark Fest, which is our platform, doesn't work until everything is there. And we need all the films so that we can upload it, we can embed it on our festival website, and then you'll see by magic all the posters are going to show, and then the audience can go click on one, learn about that film, read about it, see the trailer. It's really beautiful. And the drop boxes are for the film screening outside of Cinema Village, as well as Cinema Village. So just make sure it's there quickly. Okay, I think I'm going to say a couple of words and wrap it. All right. So thank you, everybody, for watching. This is the third of our Meet the Filmmakers series for our Socially Relevant Film Festival, SRFF 2025, our 12th annual edition. We are so proud to have brought to the audience 700 films from 40 countries until now, since the beginning of the festival in the first edition in 2014. It sounds like an eternity away now, but thanks to your support, thanks to the support of our sponsors, partners, filmmakers, the festival team, the jury, and everyone else who came and applauded and enjoyed these films, we have been able to continue this far, and hopefully for many, many more years to come if we can. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.